grab you a cup of coffee, and today we are going to be talking about how to take your teen's passion for cooking or baking and working in the kitchen and turn those into a culinary electives track for high school. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today. I'm really excited about this class because number one, this is one that I have a lot of experience with. And number two, I feel like this was such a needed addition to homeschool class offerings for high school students because culinary, I think, in my opinion, like when you see a lot of shows on TV, and movies, like even like just Ratatouille, culinary school and like cooking and working in a kitchen sound so scary. And in a way they kind of are, and I'm not downplaying any of that. But at the same time, I feel like it's too intimidating. People think, I can't get into that field. Yes, I love baking. Yes, I can make these beautiful pastries. I can make these beautiful cakes. I love making dinners for my family and making them to look nice. But I don't know about working in culinary. Well, the goal of this class would be, okay, your child loves doing this. Let's see if we can take that passion and turn it into something that they love doing while they are in high school. So we are going to turn our attention to the spreadsheet at the top, and we just simply start when we're doing these spreadsheets and put the title of the class. So this one is the Culinary Electives track, and this is the only typing that I do. The rest is copy paste for you guys if this is your first time watching. Also, if this is your first time watching, hi, I'm Alicia. I'm a homeschool mom of 15-ish years, and I've been homeschool counseling for about 9 of those years, and maybe closer to 10 now. Wow, it's 10 this year. 10 years, guys. We've been homeschool counseling for 10 years this year, guys. These are things that I have learned from my personal experience, from working with other homeschool counselors, and helping to counsel other families in our local area at our homeschool support group. So these are things that I am experienced with and things that I have studied and researched. And in the case of today's class, half of these classes my kids already have taken. Now, some of these classes were just added recently to homeschool umbrella schools and homeschool areas to be able to teach these classes. So some of them I haven't done yet, but the core classes for today's video, I have done these classes. So the first thing that we do is we actually go up here to the top. And if you guys are anything like me, I love taking and putting my title at the top of my spreadsheets to kind of like remind me what we're doing. Plus, like if I feel like if my column titles are way up here right at the top sometimes, that's overwhelming to me. I don't know why. So if you're new, again, the way that we do this is we put the track up here, and then we're going to put a class name and a study, and we're going to describe what these are like. And if you're starting from year 1, we're going to show you how to break these down year by year. If your child is already partway through high school, you can still do some of these classes. This is for people who want to start like 8th grade year in our area, or with our umbrella school. Not even all umbrella schools. Our umbrella school, once they get to January of their 8th grade year, they want to see a tentative path for your high school student. This is for those parents. If you're already partway through high school and your teen is struggling to find elective classes that they just could be passionate about, that they're interested in doing, and not just something that they're going to copy and paste and just be done, something they actually want to do, then these kind of classes can still help your high school student. The reason I do put the years on here is for those of you who are starting from scratch. But if you're not starting from freshman year, you can ignore the years, just follow the class name and the study, and we'll be sharing today how to do those classes at home. So the first class that I actually recommend for the Culinary Electives class, and some people would actually flip-flop what I'm saying for year 1 and year 2, but let me explain why I'm doing it this way. The first class I recommend is called Nutrition and Food. We have a video on our channel, link will be below, about what we use to teach our Nutrition and Foods class. My high school seniors just finished this class. I highly recommend, if your teen is not going on a culinary path and you want to help teens eat healthy in like college years and through the rest of their life, senior year, do Nutrition and Foods class. If they are going to do culinary, start at freshman year if you can. But I do still highly recommend this class because it breaks things down and it makes them decide what is the best for their body. What do they need? What nutrients do they need? Where does that food source come from? Because that does matter. And that's where you would start with nutrition and food class. When you're doing it as a culinary class, you're going to start with the whys and hows of being safe in the kitchen. Because another thing that nutrition and foods class focuses on is cross-contamination, proper food prep storage. And it breaks it down to burgers are in 1 to 2 class sessions. And you do 1 class session a week, and then you do discussion and paperwork the rest of the week. Eggs are in 1 to 2 sessions. Pasteurization, dairy products. We took one of the lessons and broke it down over 8-week, 10-week course. You have to print out this pamphlet, and you have to fill out nutrition for pregnancy, infancy, toddlerhood, younger school age, older school age, and like on and on and on until you get to seniors. And it breaks it down into what does that person need. You actually heard us mention this class last week in the babysitting class. And if you're interested in that, look for the last video that we did in this series on how to take babysitting and turn it into high school credit. This may turn into a cough drop day because my neighbor has 4 fully bloomed Bradford pears right now, and I'm highly allergic. I've offered to help them trim them back to the ground. They haven't taken me up on my offer yet. Anyways, focus of this class is not necessarily like actually starting cooking. And even if your child does or doesn't actually know how to do some cooking things, this is the best class in my opinion for starting with the whys and the hows. And there are labs you can do with these classes. Like the eggs one, you do have to choose cooking eggs 2 different ways and how to prepare them without overdoing the egg. And then you talk about food storage with them of putting eggs away. That's why I chose that class for the first one. Now we're going to move on to year 2. And again, some of you may flop these, and that's okay. Again, these are my personal opinion of what I would do, but it's not set in stone. I would recommend doing home ec cooking next. Why? Because home ec cooking is, okay, now you know how to be safe in the kitchen. Now you're going to do the kitchen work, which I also will add for some people, they will replace nutrition and food with basic home ec class. The reason why I don't encourage that is basic home ec class actually expects you to do all the home ec track in 1 year with like little tidbits. Like you spend like a month on cooking, a month on sewing, a month on life skills classes. That's not really where you're looking at if you're focusing on just culinary. That's why I suggested nutrition and food class first. So then, like I said, you got that foundation of, and that's always my goal is like the first class is a foundation class. You've got that foundation of how to do it safely. Now for home ec class, what are you going to be doing? Well, the first thing you're going to be doing is learning how to do meal planning. You can't really go into culinary and just be like, I just feel like making this today. You have to have a meal plan. You have to know what you're going to do. Because realistically, most people in at least Tennessee don't go grocery shopping every day immediately before going to dinner or making dinner at their house that night. Like not every single day of the week. So you need to look at things like meal planning, how to plan those things out. Plus, health-wise, you're supposed to look at a week at a time because you're supposed to, and that goes back to nutrition class, they talk about that. There's a whole section on nutrients. You're supposed to spread out the vitamins that you need across an entire week. Like you actually can get mercury poisoning if you have too much of specific fish in 1 week, especially if you're pregnant. So you're supposed to spread some of these nutrients out across an entire week. You're not supposed to have just dark green vegetables in a week and not have any red vegetables or orange or the leafy vegetables instead of just broccoli. So that's where meal planning comes into play. And then once you're done with meal planning, I'm actually going to swap something from my list and I'll explain why here in a minute. This is what I had third, but I'm going to put it second now. Ingredients list. Now this is different than, and this is why I'm swapping it. The next one on here is shopping. Excuse me, sir. There we go. Ingredients list. So ingredients list, how it's different from shopping list. Ingredients list is not the same as shopping list. Ingredients list is I'm looking over everything that I need in the recipe, and then you're looking at what you already have. And we're also talking about food rotation here Because that's also something you need to know when you go to a grocery store, is that they rotate the food. The stuff in the front of the shelf is the oldest. The stuff in the back is the newest. If you need it to last longer, you get something off the back of the shelf, not the front of the shelf. Ingredients list is I'm looking over what I need in that recipe. Then I'm going to go see what I already have or could finish off. And I'm looking at what is already in my house. Do I maybe need to throw this out because I used it for one recipe and now it's expired? Do I need to get more of this for it? That's why you're looking at ingredients list and then making a shopping list. I hope that makes sense and is coming across to you guys as you understanding what I'm talking about. And then of course also along with in here, and like all these kind of just go together. You're probably going to cover all of these at the same time, not spend like a week on each one. The next one on here is using recipes. There are some teens, even in the cooking field, who love doing cooking and baking, have no idea how to use recipes. They just make stuff on their own, or they're used to making stuff from box and then, changing it as they go. Some teens need to know how to use recipes, and some of them don't know how to do that yet. So we really, really need to look at those recipes whenever we are doing food. So the next one on here, we're going to jump down to year 3. Now, again, like I said with these classes, these first 2 are usually foundation. First one is usually the biggest foundation. The second one is you're starting to get rolling on the specific field that you're talking about. Now, for year 3, we're going to talk about a new class that's been introduced to homeschooling within this past year, and it's intern and apprentice. So what does that look like for culinary? One of the things you can do is take cooking classes in specific fields, because a cooking class is you are going under a master, somebody who knows what they're talking about in this specific field of cooking, and you're learning from them. And that is exactly what apprenticeship is. So some options that I know are actually available in my area are, there are bread making classes in our area, and you can do classes where you're just doing sourdough. You can do classes where you're learning how to make rye bagels. You can do classes based on and that's another thing too, is with this cooking thing, you could take a child who has food allergies and get them interested in eating healthy food that they're allowed to eat based on their allergy with this class. And you can also use this class to maybe teach some of your younger kids, hey, this is why we do this, because this child has a food allergy. We have to talk about that a lot in our home, because I am highly allergic to tomatoes. Like I'll use last night as an example. I'm allergic to tomatoes, and I can have it on specific brands of pizzas if there's a ton of cheese with it to cut down the acid in it. And if the tomatoes are not, if they're it's really complicated to explain, but most of the time, I cannot just pick up a tomato and eat it because number 1, my hands will break out, and number 2, I'll go in an anaphylactic shock. But I can have it on some brands of pizzas. Don't know why. There's a teen in my house who is lactose intolerant. So last night we had a pot of marinara, a pot of Alfredo, and then we do the pasta separate, and then the cheeses, the cheese we put on top, is also separate, and then the meat is also separate. So that's something that our kids have grown up with, but other kids may not understand or know, and that's where this class track can also come into play, just like that other side note there. But like I said, for kids with allergies, find a master of what they do and have them teach your child and help them through this. I know a lady who has a child with health issues who teaches bread making classes, cooking classes, specifically Southern style classes mostly. Bread making. There's also, again, there is pasta making. There are a lot more opportunities for pasta making outside the U.S., but I do know there are people in the U.S. who do teach pasta making classes. And then just a general baking class. Like I said, my friend has a special needs child, and she does cooking classes out of her home to help pay for the money for them to travel to go to her daughter's doctor's appointments frequently. So she does specialty, she does bread making and she does baking classes. So for her, what I would do if I was doing intern and apprentice class for my teen is in that case, and I know that's paid. That is a lot of paid work. You could possibly find somebody who does teach these classes and offer just like an offer thing. I will help clean up after every class if you give me a discount, or if you let me do it for free, or I'll come and do this work for you. You can work with those people, because the goal of intern and apprentice is you can get paid for it, or you may have to pay some into it, but you could also do it at a discounted rate in exchange for the education that your child is receiving. So you have the foundation of nutrition and food, you have the foundation of home economics, the cooking version, where you're learning how to take those basic cooking skills and turn them into finished meals. You have intern and apprentice, where you can study under a master of what they do and learn those specific fields that you want to do. Now let's talk about a couple things. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in for year 4, and then I'll add some alternative summer credits. The year 4 and the alternative summer credits, you could move those around and do each of these individually. And also intern apprentice could also be a summer credit class. Year 4, I am putting community service. Why? Because, and I'll get to it in a minute, the alternative ones are entrepreneurship and work experience. And when you look at culinary, there actually aren't as many opportunities for teens to do like work experience or an entrepreneurship working in culinary field. Now, I know work experience, we'll talk about work experience in minutes. I know there are options, but most of the time there's not a ton of those. But also what I hear from a lot of homeschool families is there is more need for students who need like volunteer hours to get college scholarships than there are for teens to need job experience nowadays. So, community service, try volunteering for a food pantry or a place that serves meals in a safe environment. Don't just take your child down to the downtown food pantry or homeless shelter and drop them off. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying all homeless shelters are doing that or like super dangerous. It's the internet. Somebody's probably going to take what I just said out of context. Please don't. What I'm saying is do your research first. There are places that provide meals. Here's an example that I gave. This is what our church does. Some church kitchens will allow minors to volunteer under parental supervision. Our church feeds our youth group every single Wednesday night. It is a ministry of our church. We want these teens to come in and get fed the gospel. And while we're feeding them the gospel, we're filling their bellies too. Because some of these kids, or some of these teens that come in, they're struggling. Like through the summer when they don't have food provided for breakfast and lunch at school, they're hard up on having meals consistently. So we feed all of our teens. It's just a general rule of our church. We feed all of our teens every Wednesday night. So sometimes what they do there is, and this is why I also said year 4 for this, we allow some of our 17-year-olds to go in the kitchen and help on Wednesday nights. That would count as community service with food base. And the other thing that me personally, guys, for a minute, the other reason why I like the idea of doing this is I feel like it gives your child a humbling experience, because so many people look at the culinary world and they'll be like, look at me, look what I did. That's not the goal here. The goal here is it's not always about you, and there's always somebody else who's worse off than you. And we're supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus anyways, and we're supposed to be ministering to these people. And I feel like also community service, doing food this way, even for a culinary track, it's a little bit more of a humbling experience to remind you of what's actually important in life. So that's Leisha's 2 cents for today. Let's talk about those alternative summer classes that I was telling you about. So class number 1, entrepreneurship. And class number 2, work experience. You are going to cover both the pros and cons of starting your own business versus working a salary or hourly job at an established business. I have one that wants to own her own food truck, or she wants to get a job cooking culinary at Disney. We're probably going to cover entrepreneurship her senior year, or at least as a summer class 1 year. Maybe not this summer, because this summer is crazy with 2 kids graduating. I want to cover that with her because I need her to know. And like with the child that's looking at this, I actually think she could do really well with it. But my goal of covering it with her would be to say, okay, here's going to be the pros of owning your own food truck, and here's going to be the cons of owning your own food truck. There are benefits of owning a food truck versus owning a restaurant, But there's also all these things that you're going to have to be responsible for on an everyday basis, even when you're taking a day off. And you have to talk about what it looks like to take a day off whenever you own your own business. And then you're also going to be talking about work experience. Now, work experience is where, let's talk about this. This is the one I was telling you. If your teen just cannot find a job in your local area with like a bakery or selling their own baked goods or anything like that, because sometimes those licenses are very difficult to get where you can actually legally sell baked goods, especially in Tennessee. They've changed the law so much. Although I've heard also like Pennsylvania is having the same problem unless you're like in the Amish community. If they just could not get a job in like baking or pastry or like the specialty fields they want, technically work experience under this, they could get a job at like fast food, working at a grocery store, anything like that. And I have heard of people, like I know somebody that I grew up with, her mom owned a bakery in their house. And that was part of how they paid for their bills. And like all three of their kids were in marching band. Her mom owned that bakery in the house. And then her stepdad worked at a state park. When she graduated and got married and had her own kids, she ended up going and working at Walmart. And then she worked her way up until where now at the Walmart she works at, she's like, if not the head baker at her Walmart, she's like right there at it. Like she makes all the specialty cakes at her Walmart. Like if you walk in and say, I want this, and she does it. It's done. She'll do it, cakes, cookies, any of that. So she took the experience from working under her mother, able to find a job. Like she was just trying to find a steady pay job, and like it's Walmart, but it's also baking. So like it's still that field of what she wanted. And then she was able to help pay for her kids to go through school, and I think now she has one graduating this year as well. I may be wrong on that. That's another good example of how you can take that passion, you can find like a job in your local area and slowly work your way up to the field that you want. It may not be like owning your own bakery like you want, but like she gets paid pretty good for what she does for Walmart. And that is it for today's video, you guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this series. If you have any more questions about specifically culinary or any of the other videos, leave them in the comments below. If you have any suggestions of like, hey, my child is interested in this specific field whenever they finish high school, do you have any suggestions for like elective tracks? Let me know in the comments below, because that's kind of what kickstarted this series. Was I had a friend who has a child who was looking at specific things and wanted to know how they could actually start in high school and not just quote unquote waste the high school years, and actually have their child be passionate about these classes that they want to do and give them high school credit for classes that they're already interested in and things they're already doing on the side at home anyways. But that's it for today's video. Thank you to all our members for supporting this content and allow us to continue making these videos and keeping them free for you guys. And thank you to every single one of you for liking, watching, positive comments, and subscribing, because that also helps us to keep the videos free. And we will see you next time.